Coming to you entirely pre-recorded from the Garage of Solitude, I'm Mario Francisco Robles.
And I've been Brett Miro.
And this is episode 147 of the Fanboy Podcast. Brett, what are you watching or playing this week? What have you been up to?
Oh, very good. So all of my watching, aside from our superhero stuff, which we'll get to later in the podcast, I've been watching Atlanta. The third season just came out. For those of you that don't know, that's Donald Glover's show, or also known as Childish Gambino, and young Lando from the Solo Star Wars story. The show is great. I'm caught up now completely. Me and my fiance Jesse, we plowed through seasons 1 and 2. It's got this really great dark humor, drama, surrealist kind of quality to it, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really an excellent show. You should definitely check it out. And playing, I actually a game I had started a little bit, but then I got lost, and then I finally just picked it back up. It's called Death's Door. It is on, I want to say PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. I'm not sure if it's on Nintendo Switch. It is another over top-down Zelda-like, very reminiscent of A Link to the Past or some of the old school Zelda games, and a little bit like Tunic, which was a game I was championing a few weeks ago on the show.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a little less obtuse. It's a little more straightforward, like a Zelda game. I am really enjoying it. You're like a little bird. You're actually like a crow, but you're like a reaper for I don't know, like death, I guess. So you're going around to reap souls, and that's kind of like the little setup for it. But it's a very beautiful game. I think the game was entirely made by 2 people, and it is stunning. And which the music and the soundtrack is really beautiful. It's like this really nice piano kind of ambient soundtrack, and I just poured a couple of hours into it in the last 2 days, and finally got past this portion where I was stuck, which I'd kind of put it down for a little bit, and now I love it. And I'm in my first big dungeon now, about to get into this big boss, and it's good. So highly recommend it. And I do believe if you have Xbox Game Pass, it is on Game Pass, so you don't
Say
have
the
to
name one more time for everyone.
Death's Door. So if you have Game Pass, you don't even have to necessarily pay for it. I happen to have purchased it on my PlayStation 5 about a week or 2 before I myself bought an Xbox and got Game Pass, and then was like, oh, damn, it's on Game Pass. Oh, well. Hey, listen, it was 2 people made it, so I'm happy to give them the money.
Very nice. Very nice. On my
What about you?
Yeah, on my end, it's been all about Better Call Saul. I don't know if you dig. Do you dig on any of the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul universe?
So I haven't. I know, shame on me.
Oh.
I watched the first 2 episodes of Breaking Bad 10 times, and Jesse and I never continue with it. But recently, just seeing all the praise being thrown at Better Call Saul, I think I'm going to have the conversation with her and be like, listen, we got to watch Breaking Bad. We're just going to need to burn through it, and we got to watch Better Call Saul.
Dude,
I love Bob Odenkirk. So
yes. Well, he's who I'm going to single out here right now. But right now, I'm super excited because there was a whole fiasco, Brett. There's a whole fiasco where the most recent season doesn't arrive on Netflix until the next season arrives. That's how a lot of these shows work, right? But there was a thing where when season 4 had arrived, I had assumed that my DVR was picking up Better Call Saul. So I was going to get to watch season 4 on Netflix and then watch season 5 unfold more or less in real time. Well, my wife and I got through all of season 4 on Netflix, and then we go to my DVR and found out that it didn't record any of it.
Oh,
and we'd
no.
missed the boat, and we refused to do the on-demand of the commercials because we're bougie like that. So long story short, we're these huge fans of this show, and we haven't watched it since season 4 arrived on Netflix, I don't know, 2 years ago practically. So right now we're doing it right. We're watching season 5 and we're DVRing season 6. So I'm going to be all caught up on this show, presumably in the next couple of weeks. And it's a master class in layered, nuanced, subtle storytelling. And it's all about just brilliant character arcs and watching the fall of a man, basically. The Better Call Saul in particular is just this interesting character study on a guy who he tries to be good. He wants to be helpful, but he only seems to know how to be helpful by breaking the rules, and how I mean, he kind of like fights against his nature at first. He wants to be noble like his brother and noble like the woman he loves, but he just can't help but kind of cut corners and do things a shady way. And it always works out for him. So that's why like it becomes like, well, I could do things the hard way and people still don't respect me and I may not get it done, or I could put on a fake mustache and lie to some people and get it done. And it's an interesting sort of moral question, a lot of the show. And Breaking Bad in particular too, it's about taking a character who starts off as the most kind and almost beleaguered and like stepped upon welcome mat of a man, and he grows into basically becoming Scarface by the end of it, and
Right.
drunk with that power. So both series are these great long form character studies with really interesting co-stars around them and subplots and really intricate plotting, and things get really tense, and there's always the threat of death or some crazy left turn, because Vince Gilligan is a madman, the guy who came up with all this stuff.
Right.
So yeah, my wife and I are just fully immersed in the world of Better Call Saul lately, and I can't wait. I'm going to be all caught up soon. In terms of what I'm playing a lot of WWE 2K22. Yes.
Oh.
Wrestling games have always been a huge part of my rotation. I mean, going all the way back to like Super Nintendo, I remember playing WWF Royal Rumble for hours. But yeah, so the latest 2K22, the latest 2K WWE game came out. And I don't know if you heard about all this, but when 2K20 came out, it was such a notoriously terrible game that they basically like apologized to everyone, pulled all support for it, elongated the online support for 2019, and scrapped 2021 entirely. So
Yeah, I
for
remember this
fans of
whole
these
drama.
games, for fans of these games, the big question was, is 2K22 going to be worth a damn after what they had to do? They had to kind of like overhaul it.
There was a
And they're
developer
basically,
change too, I think.
yeah. Ukes or whoever it was. Yeah. And now they're working on the Rivals game. They're working on a
Say,
game
I'm
for
actually very
all
excited for that
elite
one.
wrestling. Yeah.
I
And
heard they're
that's
trying to
supposed,
make some callbacks to the old WCW versus NWO,
yes. They got the
WWE No
director from
Mercy.
those games.
Yeah,
They
so I'm
got the
like,
director from No
I have to check
Mercy,
that one
and
out.
yes.
But
So
yes,
listen,
how's 2K22
this one, I
shaping up?
got to tell you, I'm very impressed. I'm very happy with it. They've rebuilt the game engine. I'm finding it all very intuitive. I love the creator wrestler stuff. It has this thing where you could put your face in the game and make a wrestler who's literally you. And I can't even tell you what a trip it is for me to like look on the screen and like, there's me as a wrestler. And it's crazy. And he's got my face and my hairstyle and everything. Oh,
That's
I love
amazing.
it. So yeah, to me, like as a long time, lifelong wrestling fan, to get to make a character who looks like me and then do a whole storyline career where you begin as a rookie in the training center and work your way up to being in the main event and trying to go for the title at WrestleMania. It's awesome. It's like wish
Yeah, that's great.
fulfillment, and I'm digging it. And I'm happy to report that WWE 2K22 is a return to form. And listen, if anyone out there ever wants to play with me on PlayStation, my PlayStation name is Kal-El. It's easy to remember. KAL-EL 623. So if you want to add me on there and you ever want to play some WWE 2K22 with me, I'll have some matches with you. You will fight the actual MFR. You'll see what I'm really about. Anyway, so that's what I've been up to. But I think actually, just really briefly before we get into any news, was the Bahamas as epic as it sounded?
Yeah, so for me, well, number one, it was like a work trip that we were supposed to go on 2 years
Yeah.
ago. So we had this big year-long or like 6-month-long goals that we had to attain for one of our really big suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2019, I busted my butt. And I earned and this is one of the rare trips that comes around every maybe couple of years where they actually allow you to bring your significant other. So
Mm-hmm.
so
You didn't
then
bring
obviously,
me? No.
yeah, I didn't bring you. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it was a really really good time. We were supposed to go
Yeah.
in 2020, but COVID happened, obviously. So
Yeah.
finally got the payoff. It was too short. You know what I mean? We were there for like four
Mm-hmm.
days. You know, and really like the
Yeah.
last day had to travel, so it was like really you're there for like 3 days.
Yeah.
But
Is
listen,
that
I'm
your
not
first
complaining.
time there?
It was I had my first time at that resort. I was at Sandals Royal Bahamian, but I had been on a cruise to the Bahamas in 2018, I think.
Nice. I
Yeah,
see you
2018.
color. Looks like
Yeah,
you
I got a
had
little bit
some
of color
fun in
now,
the
so
sun there. Yeah.
but
All
it
right,
was
go.
a
Well,
good
either
time.
way, yes,
Yeah,
I'm happy to have you back. I'm happy to have my co-host back. And now let's go ahead and get into some of the week's top stories. Now, we're going to start things off right now with our Superman on film update for April the 29th, 2022. So look, it was great to actually have somewhat of an update last week. And it looks like I've got another one. Look at it. We're on a bit of a streak here where there's
yeah,
actually stuff to talk about. Now, what's interesting about this one, I need to preface it, is the source. I don't quite know why we're all paying so much attention to this, myself included. Maybe it's because it sounds so intriguing or like it really could be true or whatever. But all kinds of outlets have run with this story. There is this random Twitter user who might be laughing all the way through. I can't believe people fell for this, but there's a random Twitter user named Cherry Faluda who, apropos of nothing, put up a thread that said, "Here's a thread with everything I know about the Superman reboot." And look, since other credible websites have ran with it, I feel like fine. Let's go ahead and sift through this thread and break it down a little bit. All right.
sure.
And what's interesting about this, though, is it almost feels like it could be a sequel to what I discussed last week without you. And I don't know if you had a chance to check out 146 since you weren't on it, but
I
that,
did.
oh, all right. Well, just to recap, in case there's anyone listening who didn't listen, which they should go back and check out 146 because there was some very juicy stuff on that. But at the time, I found out what I shared was that this Ta-Nehisi Coates script seems to be planned as at the time, what I was hearing was that it was going to be a period piece about a black Superman, and it was going to have a lot of sort of socio-political commentary in there, obviously because of that era in American history and the idea of it being a black Superman and how would the country accept a black Superman when it's still a segregated country that feels like the color of your skin determines what kind of rights you get to have. So that's what I was sharing last week, that the Coates reboot seems to be that. And now here comes this Twitter thread, which interestingly kind of piggybacks on that and says, well, it was once going to be that, but it's actually evolved into something else. So let's go ahead and look through that. So
Sure.
this Cherry Faluda says, one, while the project was originally intended to be a period piece, the final draft submitted by Coates is currently not a period piece. Two, it's not about a black Superman being a victim of racism. Rather, it uses Superman's alien heritage as a parallel to racism. They are, however, going through with colorblind casting. So that's interesting. I'm going to just go through all of them first, and then we can kind of react independently, individually rather. For number three, he said Superman is heavily nerfed, being taken back to his golden age roots. He can no longer fly, but he can instead leap tall buildings in a single bound. He also lacks heat vision, frost breath, and X-ray vision. He's also described as moving at Mach 7. All right, you getting all this, Ben? 4.
Yeah.
They do have descriptions of the characters in the script, which gives away their races. Lois Lane is written with an Asian actress in mind. Perry White is written as an African American man, and Jimmy Olsen is described as a freckled redhead. So no race bending with Jimmy. I'll save my reaction to that when we go beat by beat. 5. The film is currently utilizing the Golden Age version of the Ultra Humanite as the main antagonist, although this may change. At no point in the story does he use the albino gorilla body. I hope you're taking.
Oh, thank God.
I know you were assuming, the
I was
Ultra
worried
Humanite
about that.
gotta be using the albino gorilla body, but you rest assured he's not. 6. This script is rather long, clocking in at 165 pages. This may be due to the fact that the film is being written as an awards contender rather than a regular superhero film. It portrays Superman as a champion of the oppressed. The government hates him, but the people love him. 7, and this is the final point from this thread. The film is a love letter to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's original comics. It also has a dedication to them. Pa Kent's character is based off of Jerry Siegel. It actually has a dedication to a lot of writers, such as Jack Kirby, who serves as the inspiration for Dan Turpin. All right. So now we're going to go beat by beat here, Bretterson.
Alrighty.
Number one, is just kind of it is what it is. But the fact that it was apparently originally intended to be a period piece, but the final draft submitted by Coates recently is not a period piece. How does just that on its own strike you hearing that?
Well, it's interesting because when I did read this entire thing, or when we were first hearing some of even the rumors that we were that you discussed on the last podcast without me, I was thinking, I'm like, this kind of fits into like that Joker Black Label, and it could just be like a Black Label Superman thing. And I, especially now reading that it was going to be the period piece. That's totally what I thought. But I wonder if they were like, nah, this needs to be a jumping off point for a new mainline Superman. Don't make it a period piece.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a cool idea. I mean, listen, we can't please everybody. We need to have different interpretations, but I don't know what everybody wants. I think it seems to me like people want like a mainline Superman entry that's going to be a part of this universe, or at least something that's more modern. But I don't know. I mean, I could go either way on this. It's pretty cool. We could talk more about it too, because it's interesting that they're not going to do the period piece, but they are very much pulling from a period of Superman comics. So interesting.
For sure. Yeah, for me, it's like I feel like it's too soon to be doing like a period piece Elseworld branch off thing. Like I feel like with Joker, they were able to do that because there was a mainline Joker. You know, they have the Jared Leto Joker, but also they knew that that Matt Reeves was doing his whole Batman world, and he's going to introduce the Joker the way he sees fit. So it's like when you know that there's going to be a more traditional Joker out there somewhere, it lets you make an Elseworld tale that plays with it a little bit. Right now, Superman's largely been missing from popular culture for many, many years. So to do this, it's going to reintroduce him to popular culture. But if it's like a warped alternate version, does that really help us? You know, so I'm kind of relieved that it's not going to be that. And my mind starts going back to some conversations we had 2 episodes ago about like maybe the initial bosses okayed that period piece, Elseworld, starkly different thing. But just like when all those DC movies got delayed a few months back, and now we're linking it possibly to Discovery and the new ownership going, hold on, don't proceed with anything until we've taken power, because we want to see exactly what you're working on before we just go full steam ahead. So it makes me wonder if somewhere in these last few months, you know, Coates received a phone call from the new ownership or even from Toby Emmerich going, is there any way to broaden this and modernize it so it could actually serve as a reboot that would be part of like, you know, the mainline continuity, let's say. So that was the first thing that jumped out at me at point number 1. I'm very happy if that is the case, that it is going to be more just a mainline new introduction for Superman. Now for point number 2, it's not about a black Superman being a victim of racism. Rather, it uses Superman's alien heritage as a parallel to racism. They are, however, going through with colorblind casting. So you first, Brett, how does that strike your ear?
Yeah, I mean that makes more sense to me. Like even when the rumors were coming out and they were like, "Oh, there's a black writer. It's going to be a black Superman. Who's going to deal with race." It's like, well, it is kind of cooked into the character, him being from another planet. There is always that skepticism. I mean, we see it in Superman and Lois every week. We see it throughout the comics. There's always that skepticism. Who are you? you're a god basically, and you're from somewhere else. Like, how could you possibly understand us humans? Or that's always baked in and
Yeah.
cooked in. So yeah, but that's cool doing colorblind casting. But like, just I guess like to not like explicitly like make it maybe too on the nose. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it is still very on the nose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, whatever. It's cool. It's all cool. It's all
You're
cool by
with it.
me,
You're
man.
with it.
I'm
Yeah,
down
for
with it.
me, like
It
I'm
makes
with it
sense.
too. And honestly, what's interesting though, see the colorblind bit, I'm a little, I'm intrigued as to how that will go and how that will be received. And again, it's funny. I feel like my motivations are a little like selfish here
Right.
because I personally don't really care. I feel like I could be open to someone of any race being Superman as long as the character seems like identifiably the superhero, like a
Right.
recognizable version of the character. Like, oh, I know that guy. I don't care what color his skin is. I could tell that that's Superman.
Right.
But my concern is that going to create a whole conversation that doesn't have to happen, that is then going to eat into the film's box office and success? And to me, that's a problem because the last few times they've rebooted Superman, it's been to some sort of controversy. Superman Returns
Right.
came out and it didn't get a sequel and it didn't make enough money, and people were, they were kind of, sour and mixed on it. Man of Steel, similar thing where, it got the very divisive Rotten Tomatoes reviews, and the box office, according to, Hollywood accountants and studio executives, it didn't make what they had hoped. So my whole point is I just want a movie that is just going to be an absolute smash hit. So I know we're going to get 3, 4, 5 Superman movies in the years to come. When I hear about colorblind casting, it just makes me worry, like, oh no, is this going to become a thing now where like half the audience is fighting that why did you go all social justice warrior on
Yeah,
Superman, and
it's
the
too
other
woke.
half, yeah, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I don't want any extra conversations
Yeah.
muddying the waters and getting in the way of a new Superman franchise taking the world by storm,
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean it's interesting because you have like you said, like if you use the alien, well, obviously he is an alien, so that is the
Yeah.
allegory for racism. But then think about it, like if you do also cast a black actor, like how do you also not address that he's black and we have a lot of racism baked into our society against people of that skin color,
Yeah.
and he's an alien. So it's like
Unless that, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I,
listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean but that's an even more powerful message and story you got to knock out. There's more that comes along with that,
yeah.
and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't like not want that, but
Mhm.
that's an extra layer. You know what I
That
mean?
is an extra layer. It's just something else for people to talk about and pick apart.
Yeah.
And I just,
Well,
I
and to
hate
do
to
a good
say it.
job with in a
Yeah.
script. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's an extra layer you have to address in the movie.
Yeah.
It changes things a lot,
It
really
does.
more
It
than you
does. And
probably
listen,
think.
if the
Yeah.
later point is correct that they're looking more for like an awards contender, then I kind of get going there. But again, it just makes me a little anxious about like, is this movie going to get mangled by people forming all these harsh opinions on it before it's ever made it into theaters because of the colorblind stuff? Um, but the funny thing is, the timing of this rumor for me sits just right because I
Hmm.
just finished that book, Superman Smashes the Klan, which next time I see you, I want to lend to you.
Yeah, yeah.
I want you to read it. I want us to talk about it
Sure.
because what's fascinating about that book and that story, it takes place in the 40s. And it's one of the first stories where his alien heritage is very much used as an allegory for being an immigrant and for feeling racism and for feeling like an outsider. Like in that book, the author does use the alien thing as like a correlation. And in fact, Superman feels some shame about where he's really from because he knows people judge him or are going to look at him funny or all that sort of stuff. Like reading just when I read that it's planning to use Superman's alien heritage as a parallel to racism, my mind went straight to Superman Smashes the Klan. So you should
Sure.
definitely read that book. And I do
Absolutely.
think it's an interesting way to approach the story. We haven't quite seen that yet. In Superman 1, the alien stuff didn't even really factor in any kind of negative way. he just finds out that he's that, and he just seemingly embraces his Kryptonian heritage almost straight away, knowing that he'll never be one of us. And there is that sort of melancholy, bittersweet, I thought I was a human, and as it turns out, I'm not. But by and large, the alien stuff doesn't really slow anything down or get in the way. And then in Man of Steel, the alien thing is played for like fear. Like, if people know, it's not even necessarily you're an alien, but if they know what you can do, they're going to come for you and this and that. To play it now like an allegory for racism, I just feel like it's an interesting, different way to go about it. And this idea of Clark having shame and not really knowing what to do with these things that he's heard about himself, and not wanting to be other, wanting to fit in so badly. I think that there's definitely some interesting, character stuff to investigate there, and that can make
Sure,
for a
sure.
very interesting script. So point number two, I'm with. I'm curious to see how they handle that. And the colorblind casting, I personally, I can handle it. I'm just worried it's going to create unnecessary conversations that are going to once again lead to a reboot that doesn't get sequels. That's just my one big
Right.
fear. I've lived through it twice already. Okay. Point number three, Superman is heavily nerfed, being taken back to his golden age roots. He can no longer fly. He can instead leap tall buildings in a single bound. He doesn't have heat vision, frost breath, and x-ray vision, and he's described as moving at Mach 7. So basically, he's insanely fast and can jump really far, and he's strong, but that seems to be it. So what
Sure.
is your first reaction hearing that?
So, I mean, piggybacking off of point number two that we just talked about,
Yeah.
without all the spectacle, all those extra powers, it gives them a lot more focus to really focus on who Superman is and what he
Mm-hmm.
represents without all the razzle dazzle. The other thing I'm thinking of too is, like you mentioned, we've had Superman Returns. Big budget, I think, for that movie. Didn't get a good return. Man of Steel, pretty big budget. Didn't get a good return. You know what just had a not huge budget compared to other Superman films that did very well? The Batman.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is also a way of them safely navigating the Superman waters again and saying, let's do a little more low budget, more grounded,
Mm-hmm.
take on Superman, that where we can spend maybe $100 million and see if it actually, captures audiences, and we can get the Blue Boy Scout back, in, the public's eyes in a
Yeah.
really good light. And then
Yeah.
from there, we can like up it into something bigger. So I wonder if like part of that was maybe to Coates was like, hey, try to focus on something that's a little less razzle dazzle,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see what we can do there. But I think it's actually a cool idea. I feel like just me as the comic nerd and the superhero nerd, I do eventually want to see him fly and shoot laser beams
Yeah.
because like it's cool. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's just awesome. It's cool. I want to see all that stuff. But I mean, it's cool. Like as long as this isn't another origin story and is like a year. This sounds like it could be like a year or two thing, like we've been talking about. When they did the New 52, they actually kind of readdressed that again. And if you remember in Action Comics, they had him running around with the Superman T-shirt and the
T-shirt
jeans
and
and the
jeans. Yeah.
boots. And I'm like, I can dig that if that's like this movie, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the second movie we start really seeing him like his powers growing, and maybe he's younger, but he's been out there for a little bit. So this could really work for me. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if like they can do this movie much safer, save a little money, and not have to worry if it doesn't do well and lose
Mm-hmm.
a shit ton of money.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting that you go to the budget. I mean, it makes sense. I didn't even think of that. For me, when I first read this, I thought, okay, this is how they're going to address the relatability issue. Because right when people talk about Superman, one of the frequent things that comes back from people who don't like the character or whatever, just have some sort of thing where they don't think he's going to ever be number one again, that Batman is just the guy and that Superman is kind of a passe, old fashioned character. One of the things that comes back a lot is he's basically impervious. He has every ability. He's super powerful. How am I supposed to root for someone who can just solve everything because he has a power for everything? And so when I read this, I'm like, this is a way to kind of make him more human and more relatable. If he doesn't have a million powers and they're not all maxed out, that he has a few key abilities, and maybe we'll see him, get stronger and develop new ones as the series goes. To me, that's where my mind went. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a way to let audiences see him as not just this all powerful, impervious, unstoppable demigod,
Right.
And it also made me think that Ta-Nehisi Coates must have read Superman Smashes the Klan while preparing for this, because it's the same. You're going to read it. When you read that book and you look back at this thread, you're going to go, Coates was totally digging on this vibe.
Right.
Because in that book, he doesn't fly. He leaps tall buildings. He moves real fast. He's strong, and bullets bounce off him. But he hasn't figured everything out yet. He doesn't have the heat vision or the ice breath yet, I don't think either. And it's something where, like, organically, as part of the story, he figures out, oh, I can do more than leap, because a situation arises where he's carrying someone to safety. And he basically like soars, and he's doing it instinctually. He doesn't even notice it. The girl he's saving notices it. You know what I mean? She's like, you might be able to do more than you realize. Whatever. You got to read the book. But the point is, like, reading that, it's also just straight out of that book. So I'm very much into this idea of him not having all these abilities just yet, him developing them as he grows as a hero and finds out more about himself. So if point 3 is accurate, I'm with it.
Yeah, I should mention too, in the new 52 reboot, they did sort of power him down a little bit. Like, he still had all of his abilities, but they kind of added the thing where, like, he would get a little fatigued after a while. So if he was fighting for a long time or using his powers, he would get a little like drained, and he would need to kind of like recover a little bit, which, like, that to me, like, I liked that change a little bit. I was like, oh, it makes him a little more like, he's not just like, because like he would just be able to just punch forever, like do everything forever. And like, I know, like, some people are just like, whatever, who cares? He's Superman, and it's not about that, but it kind of is about that. Like, at least interesting if he gets a little fatigued and he needs to kind of take a breather or get a little recharge from the yellow sun or something. You know, so that could be cool. I'm digging this, man. I'm digging this. It's
digging
different.
this too.
It's cool. Why not?
Yeah. And honestly, looking at this, like, if this makes me think of another aspect from Superman Smashes the Klan. I should just, this episode's sponsored by Superman Smashes the Klan.
Tell me the whole story. I want to
available on Amazon. Yeah. No, something else that I like about that story's approach to his origin and all that is that in that version of the story, since he does feel some sort of like shame and doesn't want to think of himself as an alien, he never has that thing where he goes to the fortress and is trained and learns of his heritage and all that sort of stuff. He becomes Superman just because he's got these abilities. He wants to help. So his mom, legit, Martha Kent, makes him a suit so he can go help people. But he is still sort of a mystery to himself. And at some point throughout the story, he starts learning more and accepting that, what makes me different is also what makes me who I am and makes me special. And he starts going towards his special heritage and wanting to learn more and all that sort of stuff. So that would also, like, if they were to borrow that for this movie, I'd be like, that would be such a new way to approach it. We've already seen two guys get lectures from Jor-El about how inspirational they're going to be and all that. So we've done the fortress origin already. Having a Clark who goes from Smallville straight to saving lives because he's got it in him and he feels like, if I'm not helping people, then I'm part of the problem. And then along the way, discovering that other stuff, I think that's such a cool way to approach it,
Yeah.
But okay, number 4, they do have descriptions of the characters in the script. Oh, so this is about the gender, the race bending stuff. So essentially, it's written for an Asian Lois Lane, a black Perry White, and a traditional Jimmy Olsen. So how does hearing that strike you there, Bretterson?
It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we already had the black Perry White, right? Like, that's fine. Asian Lois Lane, I'm with it. Just as long as she feels like Lois, I don't care where she's from.
Yeah, I don't care if she's purple like Thanos. Like, just be Lois Lane. I don't care. Like,
And then the other thing is Jimmy Olsen. See, I think it's funny that Jimmy goes traditional. It almost makes you feel like Coates or whoever or J.J. Abrams, like they were in on the fact that everyone hated what Zack Snyder did to Jimmy Olsen. So they were like, we're just going to give them the beloved traditional Jimmy, because in Zack Snyder's one, he gets murdered in the first few minutes of
You didn't
Batman
like
versus Superman.
undercover FBI agent Jimmy Olsen
Yeah.
that got his brain splattered across the desert? No?
Yeah, like for
We're
me,
into
like
that?
that's why the quote about the no race bending for Jimmy and that he's just a
Yeah.
freckled redhead. I'm like, that seems like a concession from the people making the movie. Like,
Yeah.
all right, we're not
But
going to
then
change
didn't
it.
we have Jenny Olsen in Man of Steel as
We
well?
had,
And it was
yeah.
a female. Was it his sister?
Well,
Was it
she
supposed
was
to be?
Jenny, and I think people like said that she might be Olsen, but I don't know if we ever get her last name as
Yeah, I
actually
was under the
being
impression
Olsen.
that she was Jenny Olsen, and they like did a gender
Yeah.
bender.
But then I think I thought that too. But then in BVS, they actually have Jimmy Olsen, and they never acknowledge that, like, oh, yeah, my sister works at the planet with you, Lois.
Well, he couldn't say
So
anything. His brains were everywhere.
oh,
He didn't have time to
it's
think.
hard to talk when your
Yeah.
brains are everywhere. Uh, number 5, the film. I think that I want that on a shirt.
Yeah,
It's hard
it's
to
hard
talk
to
when
talk
your
when your
brains are
brains
everywhere.
are everywhere.
Number 5, the film is currently utilizing the Golden Age version of the Ultra Humanite. Can you look up the Ultra Humanite real quick?
Yeah,
Look
I
up
love
like
it.
the
I want to do it.
DC Wikia, because I'm not too familiar with them. But the Ultra Humanite as the main antagonist, although this may change, at no point in the story does he use the albino gorilla body.
After a
I
quick
have
Google, Mario, let me tell you, you don't want the albino gorilla
oh no.
because it looks crazy.
Yeah,
It
I
just looks
have
like, I
to
mean,
admit.
honestly, it looks like white haired Gorilla Grodd, which is
Oh.
like we don't need that. I don't
But
need a
also,
big
I've
CG
seen the
monkey.
Ultra Humanite as like a bald guy, almost like a mad scientist, like Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen him depicted a couple ways.
So I'm sure this is the way. I would hope this is the way they go with it, especially
Yeah.
if they said they're not doing the gorilla. So he's a fiendish mad scientist. He's paralyzed from the waist down and confined to a wheelchair. His
Uh-huh.
goal is domination of the earth. He's portrayed as nearly bald in 2 different texts and completely bald in 2 others. He's a mental giant and the head of a vast ring of evil enterprises. He's super smart and he wants to take over the world. Is in a nutshell.
Okay. So it is like a Lex
Yeah.
Luthor type, but I guess depending on how they depict him and the whole wheelchair angle, if they go with that. I mean, that's interesting. It plays into that whole idea of like the brain versus brawn type of villain hero dynamic, where here's a guy who's brilliant but physically not able to do that much, and he was able to get away with just his brilliance until this Superman guy started coming and ruining all of his plans. So I could kind of see how, like, the crippled genius going after Superman thing. I'm kind of down for that. I
Oh,
guess
and
it
just
just
for
yeah.
fun, while we're here, I went down a little further. I skipped past all the gorilla stuff. In the New 52 reboot,
Yes.
he reappeared, and this version is a fear-feeding alien from the Phantom Zone.
Hmm.
He gets out and feeds on the fear of Superman when he is a child. But young Clark is too strong for him, so he retreats to the Phantom Zone. Interesting.
Well, this does say it's the golden age version of the Ultra Humanite, so it's got to be
So
one of
it's
the
Mad
older ones,
Scientist
not the
version,
new
yeah.
52. Yeah. I mean, either way, I'm just relieved that it's not Lex and it's not Zod. All right, we've done those two to death. I was hoping for Brainiac, but then again, maybe we save that. We build to Brainiac.
I know I
Um,
feel like we've been beating the Brainiac since the Revengers days, beating the Brainiac drum. I've been like,
yeah,
when am I going to get my Brainiac? Like he's a very compelling villain.
he is.
But maybe you have to build up that Kryptonian heritage and
Yeah.
his connection to that first, really, because I think that's what makes Brainiac even more
And
like
see, I would love it, by the
sinister.
way. See, now I'm just going on a bit of a tangent here, just
Sure,
a
why not?
theory, a quick
That's what we
theory
do.
spiral. Yeah, like it is kind of a fanboy show, right?
Yeah.
Let's fanboy over this for
Me
a little bit.
being me being me.
Me being me, I'm gonna fanboy all over this. So, what if he really doesn't know his Kryptonian origins or anything about Jor-El or any of that stuff until like later on in the movie, or possibly in movie 2? And in that is where Jor-El reveals to him that there's this artificial intelligence that he had built to help Krypton, but actually ended up destroying Krypton. And, we don't know what became of it, but that's what did it. And that sets
Right.
up that, the Brainiac ship is still lurking around. And when it finally comes to Earth, maybe it shows up in an innocuous way. It's not an obvious thing. It just comes, like I always thought it'd be interesting if Brainiac almost begins like an Alexa or a Siri, where it's like this AI that everyone allows into their house and talks to and thinks, oh gosh darn, this is so convenient. And then
Right.
all of a sudden something happens and it goes all Skynet on us. And now it's building robot armies and whatever. And we find out that that's Brainiac,
And do we
So
get the shrunken city of Kandor?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why people want Brainiac so bad. There's so many cool little ways to
Yeah.
go about it. And with the allegory of today, with like, man versus machine and technology and AI, and scientists around the world are trying to develop artificial intelligence that's intelligent, but not too intelligent, so it doesn't actually become self-aware and get rid of us. Like there's all kinds of
Yeah.
interesting conundrums about super intelligence and artificial intelligence. You could totally bake that into a Brainiac story, and it would be relevant. It would be thrilling. It'd be scary. It'd be, I think it'd be an awesome way to go. But
Yep.
for now, it looks like we have the Ultra Humanite, but maybe they set up Brainiac at a later date. Number 6 was the script is rather long. So, in other words, 165 pages, which do you know the general kind of rule of thumb on that, Brett? What that
Yeah,
means
usually
for
it's
the
about a
time?
minute per page.
Yeah.
Is typically how that goes. But I mean, like that,
So,
it's so early on, right? Like
yeah, it is so
that's just what the
early
script is.
on.
They're gonna chip, snip, snip, snip,
But
and
are
add,
they? They
add
just
strip.
released
I
a
don't know.
3-hour Batman movie. Are they going
That's
to
true.
trim that?
That's
I don't
true.
know.
But
I don't
I'm just
know.
saying that
Yeah.
script is gonna change
Yeah.
50 times before it gets
Of
made.
course.
If it
Of
gets made.
course. But right now, the fact that it's clocking in at 2 hours and 45 minutes and is seemingly being written as more of like a prestige project, an awards contender, and not just like a summer blockbuster superhero tentpole. I mean, that's interesting. I don't have a lot to say on that, but it just sounds like they're going for something that has some heft to it. And
Right.
I, for one, will never argue against bringing some heft to a Superman story.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or shall we go to 7?
No, let's move on to 7.
All right. So the final one was just the film is a love letter to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's original comics. I mean, that part doesn't really matter so much, but in conjunction with the line, the government hates him, but the people love him, that he's a champion of the oppressed. Because it's true. When Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster first introduced him, it's amazing. You go back to the first comics, like he's not fighting superpowered aliens or big cartoonish
Right.
over the top 1930s, weird cartoony bad guys. He's fighting people who take advantage of people. And he's fighting a man who abuses his wife. And he's going after people. He's going after people who hurt the little man, or who
Right.
help the people who need the most, who hurt the people who need the most help. So I love that idea too. If that's where
Yeah.
they're going to go, I think that's an amazing way to approach the story. I think it goes right back to his roots. And who knows, maybe reintroducing Superman in the way that the world first got to know him will be the key to finally getting a successful film
Yeah.
relaunched again. You know what I mean? We've tried
Yeah.
all these other ways, but maybe literally going back to that 1938 sort of blueprint and updating it to fit with today, maybe that is the secret sauce that we've always needed,
Yeah. I think it might
So,
be.
yeah. So there is your Superman on film update for the week. Very interesting rumors. Again, I don't know who this Cherry Faluda is. I don't know if they just got high one night and made all these up and went on Twitter. But hey, this is what we're here to talk about. This is the Fanboy Podcast. I am Superman on film. This is what we do. So, all right, now Brett, I'm going to let you steer us. Where do you want to take the conversation next? After
Oh
we just
boy.
spent 45 minutes basically on Superman.
Well, maybe we should take a quick little detour and let's jump into Amy Hennig. Who is
Okay.
Amy Hennig? All right, so
Yes.
Amy Hennig. She is a video game industry legend.
Mm-hmm.
Writer. She was involved of Jack and Daxter, Legacy of Kain, and the first three Uncharted games. So she was like one of the main writers or the main writer on all of those projects. So she has quite a pedigree. So we actually, I think when we first brought this podcast back, I think I reported that she's with formed a new video game studio that's going to be making AAA games. I believe it's called Skydance Media or Skydance Games or something like that. And they just got a contract to make a new Marvel game, which is heavily rumored to be a Fantastic Four game. Well, we just got another announcement that Disney has hired her again, more on that in a second, to make a new Star Wars game. Now, fun little bit of trivia, little history with this. So, previously, a few years ago, Amy Hennig, before she formed this new Skydance studio, got hired over at Electronic Arts studio Visceral Games, and they were hired to make a Star Wars game. That was when Electronic Arts had got basically got the exclusive
Yeah,
Star Wars
I
license for
remember
like
that.
7 years. They made Battlefront. I think they only made like 2 Battlefront games, and then Jedi Fallen Order. But what's interesting is Amy Hennig was working on a single player, very story driven, narrative focused action game. And it was codenamed Ragtag. If you actually Google, you could probably find some little concept art and
Mm-hmm.
screenshots from it. But basically, it seemed like you were going to be kind of like a Han Solo esque type, like some kind of scoundrel. And it was definitely shots on the desert planet, as Star Wars games are wont to be. And you're probably going around like doing smuggling missions and cool stuff like that. Maybe a little more seedy underbelly than we usually get in the movies and TV shows. But EA said, "You're making a single player game. Single player games don't sell anymore. This needs to be some crazy multiplayer game like Destiny that we can just do a live service game and keep milking people for money and money and money." So they canceled the project. And then, like, I don't know, like a year or two later, they let Respawn, their other studio, make Jedi Fallen Order, which released as a single player game and was a huge hit. And I played the game, and it's fucking awesome. It's really, really good.
I've
And it's
got it.
also
I've got it. I played like the first level and then I stopped and I never went back. I got to play it.
very good. It's tough, but it's a really good game, and it is actually canon. So that is actually canon with all the new Star Wars stuff that's happened to Disney. So anyway, so that's kind of the fun little story behind it. So she lost that project, and now Disney hired her again. So I guess she has a good pitch. So it's still probably going to be an action adventure, maybe third person style, like maybe more linear, maybe a little
Yeah.
open kind of game. But we don't know if it's going to be like able to take remnants of what they did with the ragtag, or if like EA owns all that and they can't touch that now, or there's a bad taste in her mouth. But she is doing that. So I am very excited for this Marvel game and Star Wars game. At the very least, it's going to have a tremendous story. And the studio hasn't released a game yet. I think it's a lot of industry veterans, and it's supposed to be AAA, so we should be looking for something special. But haven't seen a game from the studio yet, so I'm like cautiously optimistic. And she just had a
Yeah.
bad track record. Like the last 3 projects she's been on got canceled, not because of her fault. I think just because the industry has been really crazy and people are
Yeah.
afraid of investing money.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's my fun little video game update. I
But
don't know if I
you
have
know
any
what
other
I
ones for this
want
week.
though? No, but hang on. You know what I want?
Yeah.
Did you ever play Shadows of the Empire on the N64? Is that
Yes,
before
it was
your
one of my
time?
favorite games ever. Yes.
I love the Shadows of the Empire. I mean, there was only one Shadow of the Empire.
Yeah. I
With
read the
Dash
book,
Rendar.
actual
Yeah,
novelization, and then they made the game based off it. Was Dash Rendar, yes. Like the
yeah,
Outlander, I think was the ship,
yes,
or the
yes.
Outrider or something. Outlander.
Listen, it's funny because I remember like years later, because I was playing that when it first came out and like
Yeah,
whatever that was, 96, whatever.
yeah, I think
And
it was.
years later, though, once the internet came around and there were like top 10 worst game ever lists, I saw that game appear on there for like different buggy issues or whatever. I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah,
Shadows of the Empire was an amazing game. And what I was going to say was like, you know, I think it'd be pretty damn cool and worth doing with today's technology to do a new adaptation of that story. Maybe you don't remake that game.
Yeah. Well, that's a
But
legend now. That's in the old book, so I don't think
oh,
that's
that's
part of the canon
right.
anymore. So we need, but hey,
All
listen,
of
we
that
can make a
got
game and reintroduce
invalidated.
them. They've been bringing a lot of characters back
They
from that
have been,
legend.
right? Well, bring
So
back
yeah,
Dash Rendar and give
give
me a
me Dash.
version of Shadows of the Empire
Maybe
and
that's what
make
Amy
me an
Hennig
epic
is working on.
game. Imagine it is. Oh
If she
man, if
brings
that
out
ends
Dash
up being the
Rendar,
thing. Yeah.
dude, oh, that was cool because remember that took place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the
Yes.
Jedi, and it's a little side story. And I
Yep.
think it was like Zizu or Zizu or something like that. Like the main antagonist was like a green alien guy, and
Yeah.
he actually kidnapped Princess Leia. So it was like a little adventure in between those, and
Yeah.
it ended up in the final battle. And I think in the books too. I'm pretty sure they stayed fairly faithful to it. It ended up in a 3-way space fight between this guy's, I think it was, is it Zizor? It's something with an X, like Ziza,
I'm
whatever.
blanking out on the name.
Yeah, so it was like him versus the Empire versus the Rebels. So there's like a 3-way space fight where everyone has two enemies across. It was pretty awesome. Really, really cool.
So Amy Hennig, if you haven't picked your concept yet, Shadows of the Empire,
Do it.
re-brought into the canon. Do it. Do it now.
Bring
But
it
okay,
back.
speaking of things that are people should do and that they're doing now, it finally happened. We've been
Yeah.
waiting for the announcement. The Batman is officially getting a sequel. It's crazy what I
Batman
don't know
2.
what. Yes, the Batman 2. Although
I
I'm
hope
sure it's
it's
going to
just
have
called
some.
The Batman 2.
I don't know what they're going to call it. I hope it's one of those like story-based names. That would be pretty cool. But either way, it finally happened. We knew it was inevitable. You know, it
Yeah.
did so well at the box office. It did so well critically. It did so well with the fans. We knew Reeves was basically planting a lot of seeds and preparing to launch a whole world and franchise from this first film. So it was really just inevitable. But this week it became official. At
Yes.
CinemaCon, Warner Brothers Discovery and Matt Reeves himself announced that the Batman 2 is happening. So, yay, in case there was anyone worried about that, it's officially on the way. By the way,
Great news.
yesterday, tangent I wasn't planning on bringing up today, but it's funny. The novelty of being able to just boot up a movie that I had just seen in theaters on my TV totally legally and fine. Because I don't remember, I
Yeah.
don't pirate, I don't do, there are people who Mauricio Fagundes likes to get on me for being a Boy Scout and not torrenting things. But either way, so for me, since I wait like a good little boy, last night I fired up the Batman just to like see it on my TV, and I'm like, oh my god, I was just
Yeah.
watching this with Brett in theaters a couple weeks ago. And I called my daughter over after it said the Batman on the screen so she wouldn't know what it is. I wanted her to just see what happens because she's kind of getting into, she's 11 now and she
Right.
likes stuff that's a little serious and a little spooky and a little whatever. And it opens with the Riddler, that whole sequence where he's looking at the guy through the window and then he's standing behind him there in the shadows and kills him. She sat there and she was like totally engrossed watching this. She's like, what is this, Dad? I'm like, shh, just keep watching. What
Yeah.
is this? And then it was just funny though, because then then the voiceover starts and I see her eyes start to squint a little bit. And then she sees Gotham and she's like, is this Batman? I'm like, yes, it is. But isn't it awesome? And she's like, yeah, it really is. So I'm going to try to get my 11-year-old daughter to watch the Batman with me soon because it's just that damn good. But
Yeah, my
just wanted
sister just watched it for the
yeah,
first time, and she was texting me the whole time. And she was like, "Oh my god, this movie's so good." She's like,
right?
and then like she was watching with her boyfriend, and he was like, "I think this might be the best Batman film." It was like,
It's
it's
hard
so
to
good.
argue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
really
hard
good.
to argue. I know, although since we're sharing what the people in our orbit have said, I still have an in-depth conversation to have with our friend Joel about it. But
Yeah,
the night he was watching it, he just said this: "It's 3 hours long, like an asshole." So, I have a feeling that for some people, that 3 hour thing might be it might be a bit much if you're not expecting it.
right.
But yeah, it's pretty damn cool to just have the Batman there at the touch of at the click of a button. Now there it is on my TV. I'm gonna watch that for a third time again real soon. But okay,
Yeah, me too.
so aside from the sequel getting greenlit, there was some other stuff that came out of CinemaCon,
Yes.
including people, attendees got to lay eyes on an Aquaman trailer, a Shazam trailer, and even the Flash sneak peek. So I kind of want to just go through some of the stuff that came out of that. And let's go ahead and start with Aquaman. Okay. So
Sure.
I have a little description because remember, we have not been able to actually see these things. We've only been able to read what people say happened in them. We can only assume that when the trailers for these films eventually get released, we'll probably see a lot of this footage reused. But for now, when it comes to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, here's what came up. Juan talked about the new technology he was using. This is what happened at CinemaCon. People who recapped it. Juan talked about the new technology he was using in the movie, putting 100 cameras on the actors and capturing their performances, and then putting a 3D spin on it. That sounds like it's going to be interesting, and it probably makes the underwater stuff look really interesting. Filming all the actors at all these different angles and do like
Yeah.
a 3-dimensional image of them. That might make the underwater stuff look even cooler and trippier.
Yeah, I
And
read that in the
already,
first movie they were on wires a lot and it was like
yeah,
very uncomfortable. So this was a way to them to like not do that so much. But
yeah.
I'm also worried like, is it going to be too much CG? Is everyone going to look like a weird gummy bear? We'll see what happens.
Well, they're filming the actual actors, so I
Right.
don't know. He informed the crowd that he's still in the midst of working on his director's cut, but then he did show off a sizzle reel that showed off Black Manta coming to greater power. There's apparently footage of him like essentially leading an army to Atlantis. And it says lots of swirly octopus-like underwater machines driven by the aqua people here. Juan said the return to Atlantis will continue the story and world that was created in the first film and take it to the next level. That's with these new different kingdoms and new intense characters. That's with these new intense characters. In a video, Momoa echoed that the characters coming in are pretty intense. Nothing else I've ever been a part of that's like this. So interesting. Actually, refresh my memory. What did you think of the first one? Did you like Aquaman?
Did we see it together?
I'm not sure. It's been a few years now, so you gotta remind me.
I was mixed on it.
Oh, that's right. We did see it at the
We did
Midway,
together, I
and
believe.
I
Yes, at
really, you
Midway.
and Vanessa were a little eye rolly about it.
Yeah, you know what? There was I definitely mentioned this before, so I don't mean to be so nitpicky. I mean I'm nitpicky, whatever it is what it is.
Yeah,
Like I remember like a laughable amount of like random explosions in the movie that always like interrupted some kind of like moment between Aquaman and Amber Heard or like a serious
yeah,
moment or like it just felt like there were a bunch of scenes they wrote and they didn't know how to transition out of them. So they were like
yeah,
just throw in an explosion and like it was like comical. Like there were at least like 4 to 6 of them, and by like the third one, I was every time it happened, I was like laughing, and like that's not a good reaction. I don't
yeah,
think in a movie, and I was laughing not because it wasn't there was no like dramatization from it. It was just literally
yeah.
like we don't know how to get to the next scene. Let's just throw an explosion in here. It was
But it's
almost a
James
joke.
Wan relying on his horror background, just going, yeah, just throw in a random jump scare,
But
and we'll
like
move
it
to the
was,
next
I
thing.
remember it being so just weird and silly. So yeah, I thought the movie was okay.
Yeah,
It was okay. It dragged a little bit at points.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
I
and I'm
thought it
also
was
like
good, but not
not the
great.
most interesting character for me.
Hmm.
But it had its moments. Like there were definitely some like fun, actiony Indiana Jones type moments, and I hope there's more of that in this film and
Yeah,
less like political aqua drama.
yeah. Well, I mean, that was one of the other things I saw in another trailer description is apparently him and his brother have to work together to stop Black Manta. That's something that, apparently in the sizzle
I
reel.
love more Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, you see him
He was
going to
underutilized in the
Orm.
first movie.
Yeah. Although he was so, you could tell he was hamming it up big time. The actor,
yeah.
I will talk like this. Like he was playing to the back row was Patrick Wilson.
I think it's cool that they're bringing Black Manta back. Like, he was in the first movie, a little
Yeah.
more minor. I think they took him out fairly easy, but like now it looks like he's coming back and he's gonna get some like ancient power, and he's gonna be like the real big bad. So like
Yeah.
that was cool to introduce him a little bit. He gets
Yeah.
defeated, now he comes back. Like, I love that stuff. Like, movies don't do that enough. They're always like one and done. Let's go on to the next
Yeah, they
villain.
kill the villain off, and now we go to the next one. Yeah.
Very cool.
And apparently, like I said, though, in the sizzle reel, Arthur goes to his brother Orm, wherever he's imprisoned, and essentially asks him for help in fending off Black Manta's forces. So it's going to be interesting to see the brothers now working together instead of against each other. And yeah, all in all, I'm interested. I like James Wan. I like Jason Momoa. I thought the first movie was good, but not great. I thought at times it was unnecessarily goofy or silly or weird. Mira eating the flowers or randomly playing a flute on the boat. Like, yeah, like the flute killed me. The flute, I can't. I saw the movie. I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and every time I just can't. So, here's hoping that it's a little less randomly out of nowhere, offbeat, goofy. But listen, I'm very much into what James Wan set up there. So what we've heard about CinemaCon, it sounds like all right, they're on an interesting path there. They're just building out what we've already kind of seen and taking it in some new directions. So I'm here for that. I'm also here for Black Adam. By the way, Brett, I don't know if you've heard. I see. We should talk about Black Adam and Shazam all together here. Even though Black Adam isn't noted in the banner that you made. Sorry. Sorry.
Whoops.
It's all right. It's all right. For the people watching on the YouTube show, Brett is completely hates Black Adam, and he hates him because of what Dwayne Johnson had to say at CinemaCon. You're never going to believe what Dwayne Johnson said at CinemaCon. He said, we are positioned nicely to create something different. The hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change. Whew.
He said that line word for word.
Word for word.
Anytime they've had any press, and there better be something fucking huge in this movie if you're gonna keep saying that. Because I'm at the point where like I think I don't want to even see this movie anymore because how much he said that. Like, shut up already.
Well, but listen, man, the hierarchy. Anyway, so according to this description here that I'm seeing, the Black Adam's trailer opens up on a spaceship flying against the snowy mountain landscape. Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate says, Black Adam, what are the powers that have been given to you? Loving but heartache? What?
Is that what he said?
I can't say it quite like that. These people who summarize these things. Black Adam says
his language needs to change.
Black Adam says that he was born a slave. Then I was reborn a god. Black Adam can be the savior of the world or its enemy. We see him destroying helicopters and coming in contact with what looks to be mercenaries. They're scared as he catches a rocket. Aldous Hodge's Hawkman shows up to face Black Adam, telling him there are heroes and villains. Heroes don't kill people. Well, I do, says Black Adam. So, yeah, and we apparently get some views at Atom Smasher and Cyclone and some of the other interesting characters that are going to be in the Justice Society of America that we're going to see in this film. So that all sounds pretty darn good.
Do you think in the movie he's going to say the hierarchy of power is about to change? If he does, I'm walking out.
I mean, at this point, he may as well. He's said it enough times in every interview. They may as well just rename the movie Black Adam Hierarchy
of Power is about to change. That's going to be the tagline on the movie poster, right?
Probably.
1,000%.
And then the other big one, now let's talk about Shazam. Shazam also had a showing at CinemaCon, and the showing went as follows. Apparently, it opens up in the little clip that we see. We're seemingly in like a dream of Billy Batson's, where he's in Shazam mode and he's trying to woo a woman who appears to be Wonder Woman. And according to somebody who attended, it was not Gal Gadot, but someone who was vaguely Wonder Woman. And he's suggesting that they could be known as Hottie Gotties or Shazam. Yeah, they're being funny. But it's actually, it ends up being Jimon Hunsu's wizard, the original Shazam, who's arrived to tell him that he must fight for your family, fight for the world. And there's also just a funny gag in the sizzle reel here where Shazam apparently says, and I've seen the Fast and Furious movie, so I know that saving the world is all about family. I love that. It's a little kind of, breaks the fourth wall kind of, a little bit. Like it talks about movies.
Yeah.
I just think that's funny. Listen, I want to see this thing before I can judge it too much, but it sounds like we got Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu in there, where there's a dragon. There's multiple dragons, apparently, shown in this sizzle reel.
So many dragons.
There's just more dragons than you can shake a stick at. I don't tend to shake a lot of sticks at dragons, personally.
I wouldn't.
But yeah, all in all, Warner Brothers Discovery showed up at CinemaCon with a lot of DC goodness to show off. It sounds like a lot of it went over really well. So I feel like the buzz that's starting to grow right now is a positive buzz, and that's good. That's real good. After the last several years of DC on film kind of having a bad rep, and projects seemingly being poisoned right out of the gate because people are like, I don't really want to see that. These movies that are all coming out seem to be hitting the right marks. The other one that got shown is The Flash. So I want to talk to you a little bit about The Flash because, there's stuff that I heard here that sounds awesome, and there's stuff that I heard here that honestly makes me cringe a little bit. So, amongst many things, I heard a rumor that, Zod is actually shown. Zod is actually shown flying around in this one. And one of the weird things is that there's Deadline at some point mentioned that looks like there might be a young Superman glimpsed in this, but other people have not made any mention of that whatsoever. So I wonder if maybe they saw a glimpse of Supergirl from far away, and since she was smaller than Superman, they might have thought it was a young Superman. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get verification on that, but no one else has said it except for one person, essentially. But here we go. Here's like a quick breakdown. The Flash movie teaser breakdown. Barry goes back in time. We see his childhood home. Barry watching recording of himself? ? Ticking clock. Long-haired Barry. 7 bat suits. Awesome new Flash costume. Batman on Batcycle. Zod, Supergirl, Keaton's Batman Returns. This is just someone wrote it all like basically sentence fragments. But apparently this sizzle reel was really heavy on the bat lore. And some people noted, they're like, I wonder if that's because Ezra Miller is kind of an issue right now. And maybe like they were like, let's make the sizzle reel very Batman heavy because we're still figuring out how we're going to handle the Ezra Miller portion of things.
Right.
And everyone loves Michael Keaton's Batman. So maybe let's just put that front and center, and the rest will get sorted out in post, But look, there's this thing where he's riding a motorcycle that really seems to look a lot like the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan Bat cycle. I hear it's not actually that, but it seemingly sort of reminds you of that.
There's been a set leak, I think, with a stunt rider on it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. At least when I looked at it, I did not look like the one
Oh, okay.
from, in my opinion. It actually, if, for me, like I only saw the picture very quickly, but it looked more like something that like was like a hybrid between something you would see in the Tim Burton films and like in the animated series. Like
Yeah.
there was like a little like a bit of an Art Deco kind of look to it, which kind of fits with the Tim Burton imagery, that
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
in Gotham. So, and apparently, like the people are saying that it has like two wheels in the front and maybe one wheel in the back. So,
Hmm.
but it's a bat
Interesting.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the big thing is apparently at the end of the sizzle reel, we see Michael Keaton in the suit, and he says the iconic line, "You want to get nuts? Let's get
Let's get
nuts."
nuts.
That honestly to me is so cringe. I hate to say it. I know that I'm sure there's people who are like, "Oh my god, Michael Keaton says the line," but I'm like, listen, I don't like the idea of that line existing as some sort of catchphrase that he
He
goes
says it
back
all the
to.
time, like at every
Yeah.
fight he has.
Like here we are 30, 40 years after Batman Returns, and he just says that out of nowhere. Like to me, that feels like a reach. That feels like we're going for nostalgia. It's just a pure cringy sort of, hey, remember when I said this and you liked me when I said it? Now I'm saying it again. Because, like, to me, that line was great when it was Bruce Wayne thinking on his toes, thinking, how do I distract the Joker so he doesn't murder my girlfriend? And he's trying to basically like as a desperate ploy to distract the Joker. I love that line. And he
Right.
smashes the vase and he's doing all this stuff. The idea that now as Batman, he just says that to someone. I'm like,
Well, I would
I don't
assume
know.
it's in like that's at this point it's like Barry trying to recruit him, and he's gonna be like, "We're gonna go into the multiverse." So he's like, "Well, you want
You
to get
want to get
nuts?
nuts?
Let's get nuts." All
I
right.
don't know,
So
man.
it's still
I
coming
don't
for you.
like it.
The more interesting thing, though, Mario, is like
Ooh.
some other reports are saying that when they actually come upon Michael Keaton's Batman in this, he has like a hermit, like he has like a beard and stuff,
Mm.
like a long beard, and like and also, and you mentioned the seven bat suits. Apparently, there's a shot in the Batcave, and he has seven bat suits there. So like, we haven't really seen any. And in the movies, we haven't seen any of our Batmen with like a big suit collection at this point. So
Yeah.
he's been operating for like the last like whatever. He's officially, I think, in the Earth 89, if I'm not mistaken. They
Oh,
actually call it Earth 89.
yeah.
So if yeah, he's been doing this for what, like another 30 years or something. So yeah, it makes sense. That'll be cool to see if he has like a bunch of different suits, or it could be like a fun callback to like all those ridiculous action figures that I used to buy as a child, where it was like Arctic Night Batman, and then like underwater deep sea diving Batman. Like they made all these stupid Batmans like action figures. Like it was just like Dino Crisis Batman. I'm like,
Yeah,
when is he
yeah,
fighting dinosaurs? Like j- jungle reconnaissance Batman. I was like, he's never been in a jungle. He fights in Gotham. Like they did all this dumb garbage, and
yeah.
I bought them all. I bought every
Of
single one.
course
I
you
loved
did.
it.
You're why they kept making those toys, Brett.
My parents did, and I made them broke.
There you go.
But that'd be cool. That's a really good opportunity. I hope they have some fun little suits in there. But I hope maybe we get to see him. Maybe he's like a more tricked out, like Tony Stark Batman. He has all different suits for every occasion. Maybe he has his shark repellent. You know,
maybe. But yeah, so there you go. CinemaCon came. Warner Brothers Discovery brought a lot of DC goodness to the table. And they weren't the only ones. Sony showed up, and I don't want, we don't have to spend too much time on this, Brett, but a
let's
couple other
not.
things got announced, which was Venom 3, which was probably kind of a no-brainer. Ghostbusters
Was it?
4,
That
which
second
I'm
film was
excited.
not good.
What? Venom?
That Venom 2 was not
Oh,
good.
see, and that's such a shame. I had high hopes for that.
I mean, like the
So
first one wasn't really good either, but like it had something. There was
it
something
had
about the
something.
tone. It
It
was
had
fun.
something.
Like the second one was a rush job, and it just did not utilize Woody Harrelson to his
Yeah.
full effect,
Ugh,
and
such a bummer
it
to hear.
was not as cool as the first one. But hey, what
Yeah.
are you gonna do? We're getting a
Well,
third one.
And meanwhile, at the end of that, the big thing everyone was talking about was the post-credit sequence that seems to bring that Venom into the MCU. And then at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, they're like, yeah, that was just for fun. He's going
Yeah.
back to his own world
Nah.
again. So never mind. There's a completely different symbiote in the MCU now, and we'll decide if we ever want to do anything with that. But in the meantime, here's Venom 3, and here's Craven, and here's Madam Web, and here's El Muerto. Did you
Oh,
hear about
yes.
this one, Brett?
Yeah.
Reggaeton singer Bad Bunny is going to star in El Muerto. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
When does Sony plan on unveiling some sort of Spider-Man in their Spider-Man universe? That to me would make a lot of these announcements easier to take.
When do they plan on making a good movie?
That too.
Like, I don't even like. Listen, the no Spider-Man thing is definitely a huge issue. Like, it kind of is weird to have all these people with no Spider. Like, who is Craven hunting? Like, the whole point of him being a villain is that like he gets bored with hunting animals. He's big game. He wants to hunt the biggest game of all, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. But like, Morbius just tanked critically and commercially.
Yep.
Venom 1 and 2, I don't think were like massive successes. I think they were okay.
One didn't cost a lot, and it made almost 900 million, like close to $1 billion.
I don't know how 2 did. I'd have to double check. I don't think it did as well.
No.
I mean, listen, it's enough to give it a third one, I guess. But you have Tom Hardy like behind it, so you got a little more. You can get away with a little bit more with that. But then like Craven hasn't come out yet. I mean, like hopefully that one, like I think has a little bit of good buzz. I've been reading like some things. They've been working on that one for a while, so maybe they want to get that one right. But like, if that comes out, is that the next one on the books? Is it Craven?
Oh, I'm not even following. I can't care.
I think it might be. If that one comes out and like bombs, like what are you really gonna do, Madam Web and El Muerto?
Yeah,
are you really gonna do that?
To me, like the reason I brought up Spider-Man is like, I would be able to understand these projects if I knew that they existed in some sort of thing where eventually this cross paths with Spider-Man, or I know he's going to deal with El Muerto, so maybe let me see what El Muerto is all about. And same, like with the absence of a Spider-Man just makes all of these projects seem like, why are we doing this? To me, that's the main thing. And you're right. They should be focusing on making good movies and not even worrying about Spider-Man just yet. But for me, it's like, unless you've established what the overall tapestry we're building here is and where Superman lies, Superman, see, he's always on the mind.
Yeah.
Where Spider-Man plays into all this, then stop announcing these movies until we know what the hell's going on here, because it makes no sense to me.
It's insane.
But just real quick, I did finally see Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So the green light for Ghostbusters 4 puts a smile on my face. And I hope that what's his face comes back, Jason Reitman. That would be naturally the best way to go with it.
I liked Afterlife a lot. By all, it's supposed to be I think I understand a sequel coming off Afterlife. So, I think they set up something cool. We got to say kind of goodbye to the OG crew. Well, not necessarily. Also, actually, fun thing I should piggyback this really quick. They did announce a few new Ghostbuster games recently. Okay. There's a VR game, and then there's like another one that's going to be coming to consoles. I think it's like a multiplayer co-op thing. But if I'm not mistaken, I think they got Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd to reprise their roles in the game and do some voice work. And Ernie Hudson is now has restarted Ghostbusters, and he's like training and getting like new like that's the point, like the premise for the game. Yeah. I mean, you get to create your own character. And he's like started the Ghostbusters back up, and he's like training all the new people. So that could be cool. Maybe Ghostbusters 4 does now is like they do try to bring that back. And I mean, granted, it depends. I guess when they get that movie going, a lot of the kids were kind of younger. I mean, what's his name? Finn Wolfhard. He's got to be like 13, 14, 15 now. So like in a couple years, it'll be 18 maybe. But
it's got to be like 37. What are you talking about?
No, he's
I'm gonna
37.
look that up. He's older than me now.
No, he's probably like he's probably older than he played in the movie, but he's probably like 19 now, right? 18,
Finn
19.
Wolfhard at the tone will be 19 years old. So he's an old man.
All right, so he's gonna be in his 20s by the
Yeah.
time they make this
Yeah, it'll be
movie.
fine.
So, but I mean, like the other kids in that movie had to be younger for sure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
Well,
like are they the new ones? I mean, we could have Paul Rudd again. I want Paul Rudd in a
see,
Ghostbuster suit with a
that's
proton pack.
yeah. Well, that's what I was getting at because when I said this all makes sense about the Ernie Hudson training a new generation.
Yeah.
Remember, at the end of Afterlife, we see that he opens up the doors to the old firehouse and seems
Right.
to want to like dust it off and bring it back to its former glory.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're following up on that. And it got me thinking for a sequel, it'd be interesting since they've already introduced Paul Rudd as someone who's a big fanboy of the Ghostbusters, and he is a scientist of sorts, and he now has experience in this world. It'd be cool if they introduce a new team of Ghostbusters, and Rudd is one of them. You know,
Right.
I mean, it would mean that he had to leave. What's his, Egon's daughter in the country? Because remember, Paul Rudd and the daughter seem to strike up a romance. If he moves to New York City to become a Ghostbuster, I don't know how that romance goes. But
Right.
or maybe they all
Maybe
move
she
to the
comes along
city.
with him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I feel like having Paul Rudd and a couple of other great, hopefully comedic, because that's the thing about Ghostbusters too. You know, yeah, it's about ghost busting, but what made those first two movies funny was the humor. They were hilarious, and it was
Do you
you know, it was
remember?
what?
I don't know if it was a rumor from a long time ago or if it was just like fan casting, but there was a rumor at one point. It was around like before or
Yes,
just before they ended up making the female
I think I know
Ghostbusters.
where you're going with
There was
this. Yeah,
supposed to be like I think it was going to be like Bill Hader, Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd, and like somebody else, and I was like,
I believe you're right.
I think that was a hit right there, man. Make that movie. I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
I don't know if like a lot of them still have the same panache. Like I'm a little over Seth Rogen. I always love Paul Rudd though, and I'm a big
yeah,
fan of Bill Hader, and he's still
yeah.
got it going on. So I don't know.
Imagine Bill Hader as almost
Will
like
Ferrell
the.
actually, I think, was the other one. Yeah,
Oh wow. Yeah,
but
see, there's a lot of
he's been
ways to
making
go with it.
stinkers. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now I think look, we're at an hour and 20. So I think we go straight to our final topic. We got to talk about Superman and Lois. Now that the show has returned from its hiatus, I'm just gonna fix the banner while I talk to you because it's not episode 9, it's episode 10, and I deserve to be
That's right.
fired and flogged. There we go. So it's back from its brief hiatus. On Tuesday night, we got to see where things went from the last crazy episode.
Yes.
So here we go. We ended up pretty much fully in that other world. Remember, you and I were talking a few weeks back about all this talk about the other side and the unity with you merging with your other self and blah blah blah. We're like,
Right.
all right, but we need to see what this means. So it's not just
Yeah.
this
And we need
abstract.
to see where Superman is because he was
Yes,
absent for an entire
yeah.
episode.
So we finally got to see that bizarro world, and it was, I mean, it was super interesting. But we got to see, I mean, we got to find out more about Bizarro, by the way, that he wasn't just always this ogre monster type, that he actually was like a traditional Superman on his Earth. But he did things a little differently than our Superman did. Rather than create an alter ego and a Clark Kent and a Kent family, he lived his life publicly, where Lois and his sons were known to the world as being members of the House of L. And he almost lives like a celebrity on the red
Yeah.
carpets, posing for pictures and taking and signing autographs. And it's a very, this Superman went just down a totally different path than
Yeah.
the one that we know. And at first I was worried about that because I'm like, are we doing the evil Superman again in an alternate Earth? Like we just did this last season where there's an Earth where the Superman went evil. But I thought what was interesting here is that, like, yeah, he has some bad qualities. He makes
Yeah.
some bad decisions. He's clearly not the most supportive father. And he hasn't quite nailed the balance between work and family, right? Where he seems to be
Right.
always out doing the hero stuff, which shows he's still Superman. He wants to save lives, but he also has completely apparently kind of like neglected his family, and his sons are suffering because of it. So I guess in the end, like, he's not an evil Superman. It just kind of shows that like he went down a different path, and
Yeah.
it led him to, not end up the best version of himself. But he does redeem himself at the end, where he, is willing to sacrifice his life to save his kids and to try to make things right.
Yeah.
Um,
Misguided, selfish, little narcissistic,
yeah.
kind of version of our Superman. Yeah.
What'd you think of the format this season? It was interesting. Like, it seemed like after every commercial break, we would see the title card of like who we were there watching now. And
Yeah, I thought that
and
was
even
kind of neat. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and even the time seemed to shift, because the Bizarro stuff, a lot of that was in flashback before he'd
Yes.
become the white monster, crazy Bizarro. And there was also a flashback with the brother, and you got to see how him and his brother, Cal and Tal, are like thick as thieves, and these loving,
Yeah.
supportive brothers who were there for each other and all this. I mean, I feel like there's a lot to unpack here,
There
but I
was a
feel like
lot. I mean,
the biggest
yeah.
thing to me was Jonathan L. We got to see Jonathan a way that we've never seen him before. Because on our Earth, where when we get to see him, he's the normal brother. He's, the normal, regular brother. And in the other world, he's the one with the superpowers, and he becomes like straight up rebellious teenager. I hate my parents. I'm going to go do, bad things with these powers.
Right.
Kind of, yeah. And he gets pulled into that world of the cult leader.
Yeah.
Which now
Of
we finally
Allie.
get to
Yeah.
see of Allie and all that. And then there's what happened with the army general, whose name is now evading me.
Anderson.
Who Anderson? There you go. He had a very interesting arc in this one too,
Yeah. Very
where
interesting.
he goes through the portal, he sees his alternate self, and then as they are about to merge, Jonathan kills the one that is from the alternate Earth,
Yeah.
and that's when
Bizarro Anderson.
the Bizarro Anderson, and then Anderson basically kind of becomes an anti-hero because he goes on the run with the medallions and he's hiding, and then he realizes that Superman on his Earth was doing the right thing all along. That Superman was protecting his family. That's why there were secrets. And that's why,
Yeah.
like, he has this whole like epiphany
Like
towards
a
the end.
redemption
Like,
arc, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry, I was so wrong. And you saved me even after all these terrible things I did to you. And Superman in pure Superman form says, well, that's because I think everyone is deserving of being saved and
Yeah.
all that. There's so many different things in this episode that I thought were like really, really cool and really different and unexpected. What did you think of episode 10?
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I think there was a lot going for it. I did appreciate the twist with Anderson. I was like, oh crap, that was actually cool. Like, they really like totally flipped his character around.
Yeah.
I liked like the different. I like you said, like I was a little nervous how they're just gonna do evil Superman, but like they made it a little more nuanced than that, and they showed what effect that had on Jonathan and how it put him down like maybe the wrong path. We'll see
Yeah.
if he gets like some kind of redemption, later on in the season. Um, the it was interesting. Like also, like the planet was square instead of round, which I
There was a
found pretty
lot, yeah, and
interesting.
everyone talked backwards, or rather, they talk normal, but once one of us goes to that Earth,
Yeah.
our words come out in reverse, and
The one thing that
everything
I
is in
thought was
reverse.
like a
What?
little, it was a little cheesy. It had that CW kind of quality to it.
What?
Um, why was everyone goth? Like everyone looked like they just got out of like a Cure music video or something. Like, did you notice every single person was goth? Like that
Yeah,
was the
Lois
main
has like
style there.
the chopped bangs and that sort of severe
Jacket, the
look,
black hair.
and Jordan
Jordan
has
was
the
even
long, yeah.
Jordan was already kind of goth, and then he was like super
Now he's
like
got
goth. Like
makeup and black nail
even
polish
the
and
girl
all
that
that.
runs the newspaper, she had like the little goth
Yeah.
like hair thing and the fishnet. Everyone in that office was dressed in like leather. I was
Yeah,
like,
you're right. It's a
that was
little
a
arbitrary to be
little
like, this
arbitrary.
is an
You're all,
alternate world. We're gonna make everyone look edgy and gothy, and that's
yeah, I
how it
was like, they
is.
could have
So
just like,
different.
I almost wish they just looked the same, but had the weird, bizarro white crackly face. They could have all just
I
did that.
wonder if maybe because they just did, because then it's too much like it's a multiverse thing where it's an Earth and it's slightly askew and slightly different, but it's still a recognizable Earth. If this is meant to
Right.
be like an inverted, bizarro world, then I guess it has to feel more overtly different. Now, did they all
Yeah.
have to be goth? No, but I
Because
can
also
kind of
like in our
understand.
think about our planet, okay? Like probably the majority of people are not goth. They're maybe like
Yeah,
more like mainstream, and you have a couple of goths around. So it would have been more sense if there was like maybe like a lot of goths, but then some people kind of normal. But they
yeah.
just everyone was goth. That was the prevailing style was goth there.
So that's the thing
And
that stuck out to you most, not the square Earth, but the goth hairstyles and clothing.
also, I think Talro said "What in Square Earth" actually was one of the
He
lines,
did.
which I actually loved. It was really good. I thought it was corny, but it was good. Like
Yeah.
he did it just right. Um, it was funny, but yeah, that really stuck out to me. I was like, that's the CW kind of coming through. But otherwise, really interesting episode. It looks like Allie finished the merge. We didn't get to see the final form. I
Yeah.
wonder if she's going to look different or turn into some weird monster or something. And then yeah, we don't, did he get back?
Yeah. Well, Jonathan comes back to the farm and
Yes.
confronts Lois and Jordan when they
Yeah.
realize that's not our Jonathan.
Yeah.
And then he turns and faces our Jonathan who's coming out of the barn.
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
it
All right.
ends
Yeah.
on like that cliffhanger.
Oh,
So yeah, so everything ends back up on our Earth, and we know Superman's coming to try and save his son after Tal in the Bizarro world saved him so he can go do that. So that was kind of neat because he realized,
yeah, that
he
was cool.
failed his brother on that world. He's not going to fail him. And I think Tal in general seems to be, whether he's in that world or in this world, they seem to really want to show that like there is a great potential for good in that character, and it's all just it's nature versus nurture. He was raised by that hateful Kryptonian AI father who turned him into this monster, but at his core, whether here or there, there's a good person in there, and I do like that a lot. um and I hope we get to see a lot more Talro.
Yes.
But in terms of this episode, I feel like if I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like an 8 out of 10 for me. I think it's another very, very good one. I'm very intrigued by where things are going here. I really want to see, though, like when Allie completes this merge,
Right.
they've done so much prep here telling us that if that happens, it's all over. Now she's doing it. I was surprised they let her do it. Like I
Right.
thought, like when she started coming together, I'm sorry, and then we do the flashback of Tal and Cal's relationship. I thought that was leading to when we get back to the present, Tal Rowe is going to stop the merge from happening. Instead, like he helps our Superman get back to Earth and go save his boy, but he doesn't stop the merge. So I'm like, so this is happening. This thing that we've heard for 10 episodes that if this happens, it's the end of all everything is
Yeah.
happening right in front of us. And no one's really trying to stop it now.
Right.
So, I just hope that like they could live up to this because now they've kind of they've backed themselves into a corner, saying that she'll be more powerful than any being that's ever existed in Everdom. So
Right.
in episode 11, when we see this newly merged Allie, what the hell are they going to do to exemplify this, and how the hell are we going to stop her? Or is the reason they did this because it actually goes horribly wrong, or it isn't what she thought was going to happen?
Right.
Like I don't know.
Because
So
is it just like if she merges, she's gonna become powerful? But like, what if everyone merges? Will they also become like uber powerful, or just her because she has the medallions?
I don't,
Like that's
that's
unclear.
the thing.
Like, let's
She
say the two
gave the
Jonathans
medallion away.
merge.
Yeah, she
I'm
gave it
saying,
to Jonathan to bring back to Earth, so she doesn't even
yeah,
have the medallion.
that's
So
right.
so I do have a question mark on it as to how they're going to pay that off. And if it turns out that she's just another sort of Superman type figure that he has to fight and beat up or whatever, I'm going to be disappointed. you've said that she's going to have these otherworldly abilities and will destroy the earth, the world as we know it, then we've just let her become that form of herself. So what the hell is it going to be next week? There's still 4 more episodes. We have 11, 12. Yeah, we have 4 more episodes to go.
Yeah.
So time to see where, we're about to find out where this has all been leading towards. So
I also wonder, I have a little theory that the 2 Jonathans merge, and then by the end of the season, they're able to like unmerge them, but it leaves our regular world Jonathan with powers. And that's how he gets them. Like they transferred over during the merge, and then we got the Super Bros.
See, I'm not sure I want that though. I like the idea of only one of them has it, and they kind of have to balance each other out in that way. If it's both, to me it almost becomes a little gimmicky. I like the idea of only one of them has the powers, but I dig that. We'll see what comes.
And then Jordan comes over and merges, and they just become more goth.
All that happens is the Jordan from our Earth, his hair gets straight, he gets some guy liner and some black nails,
and he loses his powers. Twist, he becomes super goth. Jonathan gets the powers.
Wow.
And it's a swap reversal.
Yikes. All right, so I think that about does it for episode 147 of the Fanboy Podcast. Folks, if you ever have questions or comments that you'd like for us to tackle here on the show, please email them to thefanboypodcast@gmail.com. And please find us over on the Twitter. You could find Brett at SuperBrettCon, and you can find me at Superman on Film. And that's it. And please, it always helps the shows when you like, rate, review, and subscribe. So if you've not yet, please do any or all of those things. And if you write a nice review, I'll read it here on the show for all the world.
That's right.
So until next week, be kind.
And stay fanboy.
Adios.